When Talia Brooks takes a job as a housekeeper at Winterfield Estate, she never expects to find its billionaire owner hiding in the shadows of his own home. As she bravely opens the curtains that keep his world dark, an unexpected connection forms through secret notes and shared vulnerabilities. Their journey from darkness to light proves that sometimes the most powerful healing comes from being truly seen. Now, before we start this story, comment below from where you are watching us. The heavy iron gates of Winterfield Estate creaked open as Talia Brooks clutched her worn leather purse tightly against her chest. The imposing cliffside mansion loomed ahead, its stone walls standing tall against the foggy San Francisco coastline. At 26 years old, Talia had already weathered more storms than most people face in a lifetime. "You must be the new housekeeper," said Mrs. Porter, a stern-faced older woman with silver hair pulled into a tight bun. She stood at the massive front door, clipboard in hand, looking Talia up and down with obvious disapproval. Talia straightened her simple black blazer and nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Talia Brooks. I'm here for the housekeeping position." "You're late," Mrs. Porter said, checking her watch. "Mr. Winterfield values punctuality above all else." Talia bit her tongue. Her bus had broken down, forcing her to walk the last mile uphill, but she knew excuses wouldn't matter here. "It won't happen again." "Mrs." Porter led her through the grand entrance hall, where crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings and priceless artwork adorned the walls. Talia had never seen such wealth up close before. "The staff quarters are in the East Wing," Mrs. Porter explained, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "You'll be responsible for the main living areas, the library, and the West Wing. Under no circumstances are you to disturb Mr. Winterfield." "Does he live here?" Talia asked, remembering the job listing had mentioned an absent owner. Mrs. Porter's thin lips pressed into an even thinner line. "Mr. Elias Winterfield is in residence, but he values his privacy. No one disturbs him. No one speaks to him unless spoken to first. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear," Talia replied, wondering what kind of man would hide away in such a beautiful home. That evening, after unpacking her few belongings in the small but comfortable staff bedroom, Talia called her younger sister, Maya. "How's the fancy new job?" Maya asked, her voice filled with excitement. Talia smiled, picturing her sister's bright eyes and infectious smile. At 19, Maya was everything Talia had fought to protect: smart, hopeful, and currently in her second year of college, thanks to Talia's hard work and sacrifice. "The house is beautiful, but it feels empty," Talia said, looking around her room, "like no one really lives here." "Well, at least the pay is good, right? And you said the owner is never there." Talia hesitated. "Actually, he is here. Some billionaire named Elias Winterfield, but he's a recluse. No one sees him." After promising to call again soon and reminding Maya to focus on her studies, Talia hung up and stared at the ceiling. 2 years ago, she'd been the one in college, studying literature with dreams of becoming a playwright. Then her mother got sick, the bills piled up, and her boyfriend Marcus showed his true colors. She unconsciously touched the faint scar above her eyebrow, a reminder of the night she'd finally found the courage to leave him. Since then, she'd worked 3 jobs to keep Maya in school, while putting her own dreams on hold. "This is just another job," she whispered to herself. "Just another step forward." The next morning, Talia began her duties early. The mansion was even larger in daylight, with endless corridors and rooms that seemed frozen in time. As she dusted antique furniture and polished silver that probably hadn't been used in years, she couldn't help but feel the weight of silence pressing down on her. "Has Mr. Winterfield always lived alone?" she asked Rosa, a middle-aged cook who seemed the friendliest of the staff. Rosa looked around nervously before answering. "Not always. He was married before, to Victoria Chambers, the fashion model. Beautiful woman, but cold as ice. The divorce was ugly. It was all over the papers 2 years ago." "What happened?" "No one knows for sure," Rosa said, lowering her voice. "But he hasn't been the same since. He used to be different, always inventing things, making headlines with his company, hosting parties. Now he just stays locked away in his rooms." As the days passed, Talia settled into a routine. The work was demanding but straightforward. Mrs. Porter inspected everything with a critical eye, but even she had to admit that Talia's work was impeccable. The other staff members kept to themselves, creating an atmosphere that was polite but distant. One rainy afternoon, while cleaning the West Wing, Talia noticed a door she hadn't seen before, partially hidden behind a heavy curtain. Assuming it was a storage closet, she opened it without thinking. The room beyond was dark, with thick curtains drawn against the windows. As her eyes adjusted, Talia realized she wasn't alone. A figure sat in a chair by the cold fireplace, a man with disheveled dark hair and bare feet, wearing expensive but rumpled clothes. He looked up, his haunted eyes meeting hers, and Talia instantly knew who he was. Elias Winterfield, the billionaire recluse, the man no one was supposed to disturb. For a moment neither of them spoke. He seemed to be waiting for her to scream or run away. Instead, Talia looked around the gloomy room and said the first thing that came to mind. "You forgot to open the curtains. That's why the room feels dead." Before he could respond, she backed out and closed the door, her heart pounding. She had just broken the cardinal rule of Winterfield Estate. That night, she couldn't sleep, certain she would be fired in the morning. But no summons came from Mrs. Porter, no mention of her transgression. Talia wondered if Mr. Winterfield had even reported the incident. The next day, with hands that trembled slightly, Talia returned to her duties. When she passed by the hidden door, she paused. Something compelled her to open it again. Curiosity, compassion, or perhaps the memory of those empty eyes that had looked so much like her own after Marcus had left her bruised and broken. Taking a deep breath, she entered the room. The space was unchanged, dark, airless, oppressive. Mr. Winterfield wasn't there, but signs of his presence remained. A half-empty glass of whiskey, an open book face down on the side table, an impression in the chair where he'd sat. Without really thinking about what she was doing, Talia walked to the heavy velvet curtains and pulled them back. Sunlight flooded in, revealing dust motes dancing in the air and illuminating a room that was beautifully furnished but neglected. She quickly tidied up, emptied the ashtray and straightened the books. Then, on impulse, she took a notepad from her pocket and wrote a simple message. "Light doesn't fix pain, but it helps things grow again." She folded the note and placed it beside a silver teapot on the desk, then left, closing the door quietly behind her. That evening, as Talia sat in the staff dining room picking at her dinner, Mrs. Porter approached with her usual brisk efficiency. "Mr. Winterfield has requested that you continue your regular duties in the West Wing," she said, her tone revealing nothing, "including the study behind the curtain." Talia nodded, relief washing over her. "Yes, Mrs. Porter, and he asked me to give you this." The older woman handed her a folded piece of paper before walking away. Alone in her room later, Talia opened the note with trembling fingers. The handwriting was sharp and precise. "Who gave you permission to change my darkness?" Talia stared at the words. Not a thank you, not an acknowledgement of her kindness, but a challenge. She took out her own pen and wrote a reply. "The same person who gave you permission to live in it. No one." The next morning, she slipped her response under his door before continuing with her work. 3 days passed before she received another note, this one waiting on her cleaning cart. "The curtains let in too much light. It hurts my eyes." Talia smiled despite herself and wrote back, "Then wear sunglasses, or open them halfway. Compromise is how we survive." And so began their strange correspondence. Each day, Talia would clean his study while he was elsewhere in the mansion. Sometimes she would find a note. Sometimes she would leave one. They never spoke face to face, never acknowledged each other if they passed in the hallways, which was rare, as he still kept mainly to his rooms. His messages were often short, sarcastic, occasionally bitter. "Easy for you to say. What do you know about pain?" She responded with simple honesty. "The scar above my eye is from my ex-boyfriend's ring when he hit me. The one on my arm is from when he pushed me through a glass door. I know about pain. I also know about healing." The next day, his note was waiting. "I'm sorry that happened to you. Did he go to jail?" Talia wrote back, "No. His father was a judge. But I got away, and that's what matters." "What are you running from, Mr. Winterfield?" 2 days passed without a response. Talia worried she had pushed too far, been too personal. On the 3rd day, she found a longer note, the handwriting less controlled. "Everyone wants something from me. My money, my name, my company. My wife, ex-wife, wanted the image, the lifestyle, not the man. When I stopped being useful, she replaced me, very publicly, with my best friend." Talia's heart ached as she read his words. That night, she wrote back, "I don't want anything from you, except for you to open your curtains, and maybe say thank you once in a while when I dust your bookshelves." Weeks passed, and their notes became longer, more frequent. He asked about her life, and she told him about Maya, about their mother's death, about her abandoned dreams of writing plays. "Why did you stop?" he asked in one note. "Because rent doesn't get paid with dreams," she replied, and Maya deserved her chance at college. His response came the next day. "What would you write about if you could?" Talia smiled as she wrote, People who hide behind curtains, and the ones brave enough to open them. As autumn turned to winter, Talia noticed subtle changes in the mansion. The study curtains now stayed partially open, fresh flowers appeared in vases, books moved from shelves to tables and back again, evidence they were being read, and Elias himself began to change. Through the window, Talia occasionally glimpsed him walking in the gardens, still solitary but at least in the sunlight. His notes became less bitter, sometimes even containing traces of humor. "My board of directors sent another letter demanding I return to work," he wrote one day. "I told them I'm consulting with my housekeeping advisor on important matters." Talia laughed out loud when she read it, drawing curious glances from the other staff members. They had noticed the changes in the mansion's atmosphere, but remained unaware of the notes exchanged between the maid and their employer. One morning, Talia arrived at the study to find a small package on the desk with her name on it. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound notebook and an expensive pen. The accompanying note read, "For your plays. The world has enough realists. It needs more dreamers." Tears stung her eyes as she ran her fingers over the smooth leather. That night, for the first time in years, she began to write again. As Christmas approached, the staff buzzed with rumors. Mrs. Porter had been instructed to prepare the main dining room for a small dinner party, the first time the mansion had entertained guests since before the divorce. "Who's coming?" Talia asked Rosa as they polished silver together. "His sister and her husband," Rosa whispered excitedly. "They haven't spoken in over a year. Something's changed in him, Talia. And it started when you came." Talia kept her face neutral, but her heart raced. She hadn't realized others had noticed the connection between her arrival and Elias's gradual re-emergence. That afternoon, as she cleaned the study, now bright with winter sunlight streaming through fully opened curtains, she found Elias waiting for her. It was the first time they had been face to face since that first accidental meeting. He looked different, still thin, but his hair was neatly trimmed, his clothes pressed, his feet no longer bare. His eyes, though still carrying shadows, now held something else, a spark of life. "Talia," he said, her name sounding strange in his voice after months of written words. "Mr. Winterfield," she replied, suddenly aware of her uniform, of the dustcloth in her hand, of the vast difference in their positions. "Elias," he corrected gently. "After all this time, I think you should call me Elias." She nodded, uncomfortable under his steady gaze. "Is there something you need, sir?" He seemed to struggle with his words. "The dinner tomorrow night with my sister. I haven't spoken to anyone socially in a long time." Talia waited, sensing there was more. "Would you join us?" he finally asked. "Not as staff, as my guest." The request shocked her. "I don't understand." "You're the only person who's spoken truth to me in years," he said quietly. "The only one who saw me at my worst and didn't run away. I need a friend at that table." Talia's mind raced. Such an invitation would blur the lines between employer and employee, between their worlds. The other staff would talk. Mrs. Porter would disapprove. "I don't think that would be appropriate," she said carefully. Disappointment flickered across his face before he masked it. "Of course, I understand. But," she continued, "I could help you prepare, practice conversation, if that would help." A small smile, the first she had ever seen from him, touched his lips. "I'd like that." That night they sat in the study, no longer the gloomy cave it had once been, and talked about simple things, the weather, books they had read, neutral topics he could discuss with his sister. Talia was surprised by his dry wit, by the intelligence that showed through when he forgot to be guarded. "Why did you open my curtains that day?" he asked suddenly. "When we first met," Talia considered the question. "Because the room needed light, and I think you did too." "I was angry at first," he admitted. "But then, it was like someone finally saw me. Not the billionaire, not the ex-husband, just me, in that dark room, needing light." Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Understanding, connection, possibility. The moment was broken by Mrs. Porter's arrival, announcing that the car had arrived with Elias's sister. He stood quickly, straightening his jacket. "Thank you, Talia," he said, his voice once again formal, "for everything." As he left to greet his sister, Talia remained in the study, surrounded by evidence of their strange friendship, the notes, the shared books, the curtains now permanently open to the world outside. She wondered what would happen next, how their story would unfold. But for now, it was enough to know that light had returned to Winterfield Estate, and to the man who owned it. As she walked back to her room, Talia passed a mirror and caught her reflection. She was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in longer than she could remember. Maybe they had both begun to heal. The dinner with Elias's sister, Catherine, changed everything at Winterfield Estate. For the first time in 2 years, laughter echoed through the grand dining room. Talia, listening from the kitchen as she helped Rosa prepare dessert, couldn't help but smile. "You're behind this, aren't you?" Rosa asked, nodding toward the dining room. "The change in Mr. Winterfield?" Talia shook her head. "He made his own choices. I just opened some curtains." Later that night, as Talia prepared to leave for her day off, she found Elias waiting by the staff entrance. "It went well with your sister," she said, pulling on her worn coat. Elias nodded, hands in his pockets. "Catherine wants me to come to her house for New Year's." He hesitated. "I said I would think about it." "That's progress," Talia replied with an encouraging smile. "I have something for you," he said, producing an envelope. "A small thank you." Talia opened it to find a check with more zeros than she had ever seen. She immediately handed it back. "I can't accept this." Confusion crossed his face. "Why not? You've done more for me than anyone else in years." "I'm paid for my work here," she said firmly. "Our conversations, our notes, that's not something you need to pay for." "But your sister's education is my responsibility," she interrupted. "Not yours." Elias studied her face. "You're the first person who's ever returned my money. Maybe that's part of your problem," she said, unable to keep a hint of sharpness from her voice. "You're used to solving everything with cash. Some things can't be bought, Mr. Winterfield." She left him standing there, the envelope still in his hand, his expression unreadable. The next morning, Talia took the bus to visit Maya at college. The campus was quiet during winter break, with only a few international students remaining in the dorms. Maya's scholarship covered tuition, but not housing during holidays, so she worked part-time at the campus library to keep her room. "Talia!" Maya exclaimed, rushing to hug her sister. At 19, Maya was the spitting image of their mother, tall and slender, with bright, hopeful eyes untouched by the hardships Talia had shielded her from. They spent the day together, walking through the nearby park and catching up. Maya talked excitedly about her classes, her friends, her dreams of becoming a doctor. "How's the job at the mansion?" Maya asked, as they sat at a small cafe, sharing a muffin to save money. Talia hesitated. "It's interesting. The owner, Mr. Winterfield, he's not what I expected." Maya's eyes widened. "You've met him. I thought he was like a ghost or something." "He's just a man," Talia said simply. "A sad one." "Is he handsome?" The pictures from before his divorce were all over the magazines. Talia thought about Elias, his haunted eyes, the way his smile had slowly returned over the weeks, the intelligence that shone through his notes. "He's getting there." Maya studied her sister's face. "You like him?" "It's not like that," Talia protested. "We just talk sometimes, write notes." "Notes?" Maya leaned forward, intrigued. "What kind of notes?" Talia regretted mentioning it. "Just about books, life, nothing important." "Nothing important doesn't make you blush," Maya teased. Her expression turned serious. "Just be careful, okay? Men like that, they live in a different world than us." "Trust me, I know exactly what world I belong in," Talia replied, thinking of the check she had returned. When Talia returned to Winterfield Estate the next day, the atmosphere had changed again. Mrs. Porter informed her coldly that Mr. Winterfield had left for San Francisco on business and would be gone for several days. "He's returning to work?" Talia asked, surprised. "Apparently," Mrs. Porter replied with a sniff. "The board of his company has been demanding it for months. I suppose he finally listened." As Talia went about her duties, the house felt emptier than before, despite being exactly as it had been when she first arrived. She found herself pausing outside the study, half expecting to find a note waiting, but there was nothing. 3 days passed without word from Elias. Talia told herself it was better this way. The strange friendship they had formed had been crossing boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. He was her employer, a billionaire, a man from a world she could never belong in. On the 4th day, as Talia dusted the library shelves, Mrs. Porter appeared with her usual clipboard. "You've been requested at the main office of Winterfield Innovations," she announced, her tone suggesting she found the request inappropriate. Talia frowned. "The company? Why?" "Mr. Winterfield didn't share his reasons with me," Mrs. Porter replied stiffly. "A car will pick you up at noon. Wear something presentable." Her gaze swept over Talia's uniform with disapproval. At noon, Talia found herself in the back of a sleek black car, wearing the only nice outfit she owned, a simple navy dress she had bought second-hand for job interviews. The driver said nothing as they wound through the coastal roads toward San Francisco, leaving the isolated mansion behind. Winterfield Innovations occupied a gleaming tower in the financial district, its glass facade reflecting the winter sunlight. Talia felt out of place as she was escorted through the lobby, aware of curious glances from employees dressed in expensive business attire. The executive floor was hushed, with plush carpeting that muffled footsteps and artwork that probably cost more than Talia would earn in a lifetime. The assistant who had greeted her led her to a large corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. Elias stood by the windows wearing a tailored suit that transformed him from the disheveled recluse she had first met into the powerful CEO whose face had once graced magazine covers. He turned as she entered, his expression unreadable. "Thank you for coming," he said formally. Talia remained by the door, uncertain. "Did I have a choice?" A faint smile crossed his face. "With you, there's always a choice. That's what I've learned." He gestured to a seating area, and Talia perched on the edge of a leather chair, trying not to show her discomfort. "I wanted to apologize," Elias said, sitting across from her, "for the check. You were right to return it." Talia nodded, waiting for him to continue. "I've been hiding," he admitted, "not just from the world, but from myself, from responsibilities, from pain." He met her eyes. "Your notes, your honesty, they made me realize I can't keep doing that." "Is that why you came back to work?" He nodded. "Partly. The company needs direction. People's jobs depend on decisions I've been avoiding." "That's good," Talia said sincerely. "I'm glad you're finding your way back." "There's something else," Elias continued, his tone shifting to something more businesslike. "I've established a scholarship program for students supporting family members through college. The first recipient has already been selected." Talia stiffened. "My sister." "No," he said quickly. "I respected your wishes. Maya doesn't even know about it. But there are others like her, and like you, who deserve support." Talia felt a wave of relief, followed by genuine appreciation. That's wonderful, Mr. Winterfield." "Elias," he corrected gently. "And there's one more thing. A job opening in our communications department. Entry level, but with potential for advancement. For someone with writing skills and a unique perspective." Talia's heart raced. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm suggesting you apply," he clarified. "Your resume would cross my desk along with others. There would be interviews, standard procedure." His eyes held hers. "No special treatment, just an opportunity." Talia didn't know what to say. The job would mean a regular schedule, better pay, a chance to use her mind instead of just her hands. But it would also mean leaving the mansion, ending their strange note exchanges, stepping into his world where she didn't belong. "I'll think about it," she finally said. Elias nodded, accepting her response. As she stood to leave, he added, "There's one more thing. I'm hosting a New Year's Eve charity event at the mansion, the first public event there since—" He didn't need to finish the sentence. "I'd like you to attend, as a guest." "I don't think that would be appropriate," Talia said, echoing her response to his dinner invitation weeks earlier. This time, Elias didn't back down. "Appropriate is overrated. I need a friend there, Talia, someone who sees me, not my bank account." The vulnerability in his voice made her hesitate. "I'll think about that too." Back at the mansion, Talia found the staff abuzz with preparations for the New Year's Eve event. Cleaning crews had been brought in to polish every surface, florists were planning elaborate arrangements, and caterers had taken over the kitchen. 50 guests, Rosa exclaimed as she showed Talia the menu, "including the mayor and half the tech billionaires in California. It's like the old days." Mrs. Porter was in her element, directing staff with military precision. "The West Wing needs to be immaculate," she instructed Talia. "Mr. Winterfield has specifically requested that you oversee it." In the days that followed, Talia threw herself into the preparations, grateful for the distraction from her thoughts about Elias's job offer. The study that had once been dark and gloomy was transformed into a bright space filled with fresh flowers and new books. On December 30th, Elias returned to the mansion. Talia was polishing the library windows when she felt his presence behind her. "Welcome back," she said without turning around. "It's strange," he replied. "For 2 years this place felt like a prison. Now it feels like home again." Talia finally turned to face him. He looked different, still serious, but with a new energy about him, a sense of purpose that hadn't been there before. "Have you thought about the job?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I'm going to apply, but I want to be clear. I don't want any special consideration." Elias nodded. "And the New Year's party?" Talia hesitated. I don't have anything to wear to that kind of event. A smile touched his lips. I thought you might say that. He handed her a business card. My sister's personal shopper. She's expecting your call. Consider it a Christmas bonus for all the staff. Before Talia could protest, he added, everyone is getting a clothing allowance for the event. It's not special treatment. That evening, Talia called the number on the card, half expecting to be treated with condescension. Instead, the woman was warm and helpful, arranging to meet Talia the next day at a boutique in the city. The shopping experience was unlike anything Talia had ever known. The boutique closed for their private appointment, and she was treated like a valued customer, not a maid playing dress-up. After trying on several options, she selected a simple but elegant emerald green gown that made her feel beautiful without being ostentatious. Excellent choice, the shopper approved. Classic, elegant, it suits you. When Talia tried to see the price tag, the woman gently stopped her. Mr. Winterfield has taken care of everything. He was quite specific about making sure you were comfortable. The night of the party arrived with a flurry of activity. Staff members who usually worked behind the scenes were now dressed in formal attire, ready to enjoy the celebration, while temporary workers handled service duties. Talia took extra care with her appearance, applying light makeup and arranging her hair in a simple updo. When she finally slipped on the emerald dress, she barely recognized her reflection in the mirror. You look like a princess, Rosa said, appearing in the doorway of Talia's room. The cook was dressed in a lovely blue gown, her grey hair elegantly styled. Mr. Winterfield was right to insist we all attend as guests. The mansion had been transformed into a winter wonderland, with thousands of twinkling lights and ice sculptures that caught and refracted the light. A string quartet played in the grand hall as guests in designer clothing and glittering jewels mingled with flutes of champagne. Talia stayed near the edges of the room, uncomfortable with the opulence surrounding her. She watched as Elias moved through the crowd, shaking hands, making introductions, playing the role of charming host. He seemed so different from the broken man she had found sitting in the dark months ago. He keeps looking for you, a woman's voice said beside her. Talia turned to find an elegant woman in her 40s, watching her with curious eyes. There was a resemblance to Elias in the shape of her face, the intensity of her gaze. You must be Catherine, Talia said. Elias's sister, Catherine smiled. And you must be Talia, the woman who brought my brother back to life. Talia felt her cheeks warm. I didn't do anything special. That's not what he says. Catherine sipped her champagne, studying Talia. 2 months ago, I couldn't get him to answer my calls. Now he's hosting charity events and returning to the company. Whatever you did, it worked. I just opened some curtains, Talia said, repeating what she had told Rosa. Catherine laughed. Is that a metaphor? Not entirely, Talia replied with a small smile. He told me about the notes, Catherine continued. About how you were the only person who saw him at his lowest and didn't look away. She touched Talia's arm gently. Thank you for that. Our family, we didn't know how to reach him after Victoria left. Before Talia could respond, a commotion near the entrance caught their attention. A stunning blonde woman in a revealing red dress had arrived, causing a stir among the guests. Photographers who had been stationed outside for arrivals began snapping pictures frantically. Oh no, Catherine muttered. Victoria. Talia felt her stomach drop as she recognized the woman from magazine covers, Victoria Chambers, Elias's ex-wife, the fashion model whose public affair had apparently triggered his breakdown. Across the room, Elias had gone rigid, his conversation forgotten as he stared at his ex-wife. Victoria moved through the crowd like she owned the place, accepting a glass of champagne from a server and scanning the room until her eyes locked with Elias's. With deliberate slowness, she made her way toward him, guests parting before her like the Red Sea. Elias, darling, her voice carried across the now hushed room. What a lovely party, just like old times. Talia watched as Elias struggled to maintain his composure. His sister moved quickly to his side, a protective hand on his arm. Victoria, he finally said, his voice carefully controlled. I don't recall sending you an invitation. Victoria laughed, the sound like tinkling glass. Don't be silly, I'm still on all the society lists. She looked around the room with calculated casualness. Besides, when I heard you had finally emerged from your episode, I had to see for myself. The word episode hung in the air like poison. Talia could see Elias's jaw tighten, could sense his hard-won confidence beginning to crack under his ex-wife's deliberate cruelty. Without thinking, Talia moved forward, threading through the crowd, until she reached Elias's side. His eyes widened slightly when he saw her, relief washing over his features. "Mr. Winterfield," she said, loud enough for those nearby to hear, "the mayor was asking about your new education initiative. Shall I show him to the library where the presentation is set up?" It was a lie, but it offered him an escape. Elias nodded gratefully. "Yes, thank you, Talia." He turned to Victoria with newfound composure. "If you'll excuse me, my guests are waiting." Victoria's perfect features hardened as her gaze shifted to Talia, taking in the simple emerald dress, the lack of expensive jewelry. "And who might you be?" she asked, her tone suggesting Talia couldn't possibly be anyone important. "This is Talia Brooks," Catherine interjected smoothly, "one of Elias's most valued friends." The word friend carried a weight that made Victoria's eyes narrow. She looked between Talia and Elias, a calculating expression on her face. "How fascinating," she purred. "I didn't realize household staff were invited to these events now. How democratic of you, Elias." Talia felt her cheeks burn, but she kept her chin high. "Better to be staff with integrity than a guest with none," she said quietly, the words slipping out before she could stop them. A collective gasp went through the onlookers. Victoria's perfect mouth opened in shock, but before she could respond, Elias placed his hand gently on Talia's back. "The mayor is waiting," he said calmly, guiding her away from Victoria and through the crowd. Once they reached the relative privacy of the hallway, Elias released a shaky breath. "Thank you," he said. "I wasn't prepared to see her." "I spoke out of turn," Talia said, embarrassed by her outburst. "I'm sorry if I made things worse." To her surprise, Elias laughed, a genuine laugh that transformed his face. "Worse? That was the first time anyone has ever stood up to Victoria on my behalf." His expression softened as he looked at her. "You're remarkable, Talia Brooks." The moment was interrupted by Catherine joining them, her face flushed with suppressed laughter. "Victoria just left in a fury," she reported. "Apparently being put in her place by the help was too much for her ego." Talia winced. "I really am sorry. I don't know what came over me." "I do," Catherine said with a knowing smile. She looked between her brother and Talia, then tactfully excused herself. "I should get back to the guests. Take your time." Alone in the hallway, Talia suddenly felt self-conscious in her borrowed finery. "I should probably go too. I don't really belong in there." "You belong wherever you choose to be," Elias said firmly. He hesitated, then added, "including here with me." The simple statement hung between them, filled with unspoken meaning. Talia looked up at him, seeing not the billionaire or the broken man, but something in between, a person finding his way back to himself, just as she was finding her way forward. "It's almost midnight," he said softly. "Will you watch the new year arrive with me?" "On the terrace?" Talia nodded, unable to find words. He offered his arm and she took it, allowing him to lead her through a side door onto a private terrace overlooking the cliffside and the dark ocean beyond. The night air was cool but not cold, and the sound of the party faded behind them. Stars glittered overhead, competing with the lights of distant ships on the horizon. "I've been thinking," Elias said as they stood at the stone balustrade. "About new beginnings," Talia smiled. "Appropriate for New Year's Eve. Not just the calendar," he clarified. "For me. For my life." He turned to face her. "You were right, you know, when you said the room felt dead without light. I was dead too, in many ways." From inside they could hear the countdown beginning, 30 seconds to midnight. "I don't know what happens next," Elias continued, his voice low and urgent. "Between us, I mean. I know there are complications. I'm your employer. There are class differences. People will talk." "People always talk," Talia said softly. "But I do know one thing," he pressed on. "I don't want to go back to the darkness. And you, Talia, you're the light that found me there." The countdown reached 10, the voices from inside growing louder with excitement. 9, 8, 7. "What are you saying, Elias?" Talia asked, her heart pounding. 6, 5, 4. "I'm saying I want to know you better," he answered. "Not as my housekeeper, not as my employee, as yourself, as Talia." 3, 2, 1. Cheers erupted from inside as the new year arrived. On the terrace, Elias and Talia stood in silence, the possibility of something new hanging between them, like the first page of an unwritten story. "Happy New Year, Talia," Elias finally said. "Happy New Year, Elias," she replied, his name still feeling new on her lips. As fireworks began to explode over the bay, painting the night sky with color and light, Talia felt something shift inside her. Fear, yes, but also hope. The kind of hope she had set aside years ago when life had taught her to be realistic. Elias's hand found hers in the darkness, his fingers warm as they interlaced with her own. Neither spoke, but in that touch was a promise. Of what exactly, Talia wasn't sure, but for the first time in a long time she was willing to wait and see. The first week of January brought changes to Winterfield Estate. The Christmas decorations came down, the temporary staff departed, and things should have returned to normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. Talia and Elias had settled into an awkward dance around each other. Since the New Year's Eve party, they had been polite but distant, as if both were afraid to acknowledge what had happened on the terrace, that moment of connection, of possibility. "Did something happen between you two?" Rosa asked one morning as she and Talia prepared breakfast in the kitchen. "You and Mr. Winterfield barely look at each other now." Talia focused on arranging fruit on a plate. "Nothing happened. That's the problem." Rosa smiled knowingly. Sometimes nothing happening is something happening. Before Talia could respond, Mrs. Porter entered the kitchen with her ever-present clipboard. "Talia, Mr. Winterfield would like to see you in his office." Talia's heart skipped a beat. "Now? Unless you have more important matters to attend to," Mrs. Porter replied, with barely concealed disapproval. Elias's home office was on the first floor of the West Wing, a room Talia had cleaned many times, but had never seen occupied until recently. Now, as she knocked on the door, she felt a strange nervousness. "Come in," his voice called. Elias sat behind a large desk, papers spread before him, looking every inch the CEO. He glanced up as she entered, his expression carefully neutral. "You wanted to see me?" Talia asked, remaining by the door. "Yes." He straightened some papers, not quite meeting her eyes. "I wanted to let you know that your job application has been received by HR. The interviews will be next week." "Oh." Talia wasn't sure what she had expected, but this formal, businesslike interaction wasn't it. "Thank you for letting me know." An awkward silence fell between them. Finally, Elias sighed and set down his pen. "Talia, about New Year's Eve. We don't have to talk about it," she said quickly. "I think we do." He stood and walked around the desk, leaning against it as he faced her. "I meant what I said on the terrace, about wanting to know you better." Talia nodded, her throat suddenly tight. "I know, but since then you've been distant," he finished for her. "I know. I'm sorry." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she had come to recognize as a sign of his frustration. "The thing is, I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "This." He gestured between them. "Whatever is happening here, I'm your employer. You work in my house. The power imbalance alone is complicated," Talia supplied. "Exactly." His eyes finally met hers, filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "But I can't stop thinking about you, about our conversations, our notes." Talia took a deep breath. "So what do we do?" Before Elias could answer, his phone rang. He glanced at it with annoyance, but then frowned. "I need to take this. It's the board." Talia nodded and turned to leave, but he caught her hand. "This conversation isn't over," he said softly. "Just paused." Later that day, as Talia dusted the library shelves, she heard voices from the hallway, Elias and Catherine, speaking in hushed but tense tones. "You can't be serious," Catherine was saying. "After everything she did." "It's not up to me," Elias replied. "She still owns 15% of the company." "Which she got in the divorce that nearly destroyed you," Catherine shot back. "And now she wants back on the board. After showing up uninvited to your party and humiliating you in public." Talia froze, realizing they were talking about Victoria. She knew she shouldn't eavesdrop, but she couldn't help herself. "The board is considering it," Elias said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "They think having her fashion expertise would help with our new line of wearable tech." "That's not why she's doing this," Catherine insisted. "She's trying to get back into your life now that you're in the spotlight again. You know how she operates." Their voices faded as they moved down the hallway, leaving Talia with a knot of anxiety in her stomach. Victoria returning to Elias's company would complicate everything, especially whatever was beginning between her and Elias. That evening, Talia received a call from Maya, who was bubbling with excitement. "I got an interview for a summer internship at San Francisco General," Maya exclaimed. "It's perfect for my pre-med program, and it actually pays." "That's wonderful," Talia said, genuinely happy for her sister. "When is the interview?" "Next week." "I'll need to come to the city." Maya hesitated. "I was wondering if I could stay with you at the mansion just for a night or two." Talia bit her lip. The idea of Maya at Winterfield Estate, possibly meeting Elias, made her uncomfortable for reasons she couldn't quite articulate. "Let me check if it's allowed," she said. "I'll call you back." The next morning, Talia approached Mrs. Porter about Maya's visit. To her surprise, the housekeeper didn't object. "Mr. Winterfield has always allowed staff to have family visitors in the East Wing," she said. "Just make sure she understands the rules about privacy." With that settled, Talia called Maya to confirm the arrangements. She deliberately didn't mention anything about her relationship, or whatever it was, with Elias. Some things were better explained in person. The week passed quickly. Talia prepared for her job interview, studying the company website and practicing answers to potential questions. Elias was often away at the office, and when he was home they maintained a polite distance. Their earlier conversation still paused, as more pressing matters demanded his attention. On Friday morning, Talia stood nervously outside the Winterfield Innovations headquarters, dressed in the navy blue suit she had purchased with her savings. The job interview was scheduled for 10 a.m., and she had arrived early, watching business people stream through the revolving doors with their coffee cups and confident strides. "You can do this," she muttered to herself before finally entering the building. The interview was with a panel of 3 people: the head of communications, a senior copywriter, and a human resources representative. They asked about her education, her writing experience, her understanding of corporate communications. Talia answered honestly, admitting her lack of formal qualifications, but emphasizing her passion for writing and her ability to connect with people. "Your resume mentions some college education in literature and playwriting," the communications director noted. "Why did you leave?" Talia took a deep breath. "Family obligations. My mother became ill, and after she passed, I needed to support my younger sister through college." The interviewers exchanged glances, and Talia couldn't read their expressions. As the interview concluded, the HR representative smiled politely. "Thank you for coming in, Ms. Brooks. We're interviewing several candidates this week. You'll hear from us by next Friday." Talia left the building feeling uncertain. She had done her best, but she was competing against people with degrees and experience. The fact that she currently worked as Elias's housekeeper might have helped her get the interview, but she doubted it would secure her the job. As she waited at the bus stop, her phone rang. It was Rosa. "Your sister is here," the cook said without preamble. "She arrived early, and Mr. Winterfield is home too." Talia's stomach dropped. "Does he know she's my sister?" "Yes," Rosa said. She introduced herself when they ran into each other in the hallway. "They're having tea in the kitchen right now." "They're what?" Talia nearly shouted, drawing looks from others at the bus stop. "I'm on my way." The bus ride back to Winterfield Estate felt endless. Talia's mind raced with possibilities, all of them mortifying. What was Maya saying to Elias? What was he telling her? When she finally arrived, she rushed through the staff entrance and headed straight for the kitchen. There she found a scene she never could have imagined. Maya and Elias sitting at the kitchen table with Rosa, all 3 laughing over cups of tea. "Talia!" Maya exclaimed, jumping up to hug her. "Why didn't you tell me your boss is so interesting? He's been telling me about his new scholarship program for students supporting family members." Talia looked at Elias, who met her gaze with a small, almost shy smile. "It seemed relevant to Maya's situation," he said simply. "And he's offered to give me a tour of Winterfield Innovations tomorrow before my interview at the hospital," Maya continued excitedly. "He says their medical technology division might have internship opportunities too." "That's very kind," Talia managed, still trying to process the situation. "I hope you don't mind," Elias said. "Your sister is quite persuasive." Maya grinned. "I just asked if he knew anyone at the company who could show me around. Turns out he knows everyone." Rosa tactfully excused herself, leaving the 3 of them alone in the kitchen. Maya looked between Talia and Elias, her expression turning thoughtful. "I'm going to unpack," she announced. "Talia, your room is so cute. Rosa already showed me where everything is." After Maya left, Talia sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. "I'm sorry about that. She doesn't usually ambush people." Elias chuckled. "She reminds me of you, actually. Direct, honest." "How did the interview go?" he asked, changing the subject. Talia shrugged. "Hard to tell. They were very professional." "As they should be," Elias said. "I told HR to treat your application like any other." "Thank you for that," Talia said sincerely. "I don't want special treatment." Elias looked like he wanted to say more, but instead he stood. "I should get back to work. Tell Maya I'll have a car pick her up at 9 tomorrow for the tour." That night, after dinner, Talia and Maya sat in Talia's small staff bedroom, catching up properly. "So," Maya said, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. "What's going on between you and Mr. Billionaire?" Talia busied herself with straightening the bedspread. "Nothing. Liar," Maya said without heat. "I saw how he looks at you, and how you look at him when you think no one's watching." "It's complicated," Talia admitted. "Because he's rich and you work for him?" Maya asked bluntly. "That's part of it." Maya leaned forward. "Do you like him? The real him, not the money or the mansion?" Talia thought about their notes, their conversations, the way Elias had slowly emerged from his darkness. "Yes," she said quietly, "I do." "Then uncomplicate it," Maya said, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. "Life's too short, Talia. You've spent years taking care of everyone else. Maybe it's time someone took care of you." Talia shook her head. "It's not that simple." "It never is," Maya agreed, "but that doesn't mean it's not worth trying." The next morning, Elias's driver picked Maya up as promised. Talia spent the day cleaning, trying not to think about her sister touring Elias's company or what they might be discussing. When Maya returned that afternoon, she was bursting with excitement. "That place is amazing," she gushed. "The medical tech they're developing, prosthetics that respond to neural signals, diagnostic tools that can detect diseases years before symptoms appear." She flopped onto Talia's bed. "And everyone was so nice. They all respect him so much." "Who?" "Elias," Maya said, using his first name with easy familiarity. "They say he completely transformed after coming back to work, that he's more focused, more compassionate." She gave Talia a meaningful look. "Several people mentioned that it happened right after he met someone special." Talia felt her face warm. "They're exaggerating." "I don't think so," Maya replied. "And neither does he." Before Talia could respond, her phone rang. It was the HR department at Winterfield Innovations. "Miss Brooks," a professional voice said, "I'm calling about the communications assistant position." Talia's heart raced. "Yes, we'd like to offer you the job," the woman continued. "Your writing samples were excellent, and the panel was impressed by your perspective and life experience." Talia couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Thank you," she managed. "When would you like me to start?" 2 weeks from Monday, if that works for you. The salary is $60,000 per year to start, with benefits and potential for advancement." After confirming the details, Talia hung up in a daze. $60,000 a year, more money than she had ever earned, enough to make a real difference for her and Maya. "You got it, didn't you?" Maya squealed, reading her expression. "I knew you would." That evening, Talia found Elias in his study, working late as usual. She knocked on the open door and he looked up, his face lighting up when he saw her. "I got the job," she said simply. Elias broke into a genuine smile. "Congratulations. They would have been fools not to hire you." "Did you have anything to do with it?" she asked directly. "I told you I wouldn't interfere," he replied, "and I didn't. But I'm not surprised they recognized your talent." Talia believed him. "This means I'll be leaving here in 2 weeks," she said. "No more cleaning the West Wing. No more notes," Elias added softly. "No more employer-employee complications," Talia pointed out. Understanding dawned in his eyes. "No more paused conversations." She nodded. "Maybe we can finally finish the one we started." The moment was interrupted by Mrs. Porter appearing in the doorway. "Mr. Winterfield, you have a visitor." Before she could announce who it was, Victoria swept into the room, dressed impeccably in a designer outfit that probably cost more than Talia's yearly salary. "Elias, darling," she purred, completely ignoring Talia's presence. "I've been trying to reach you all day." Elias's expression hardened. "Victoria, I didn't realize we had an appointment." "We don't," she replied breezily, "but I wanted to discuss the board position in person." She glanced dismissively at Talia. "Perhaps in private." Talia took the hint and turned to leave, but Elias's voice stopped her. "Talia, please stay," he said firmly. "Victoria, whatever you have to say can be said in front of Ms. Brooks. She's a trusted colleague." Victoria's perfect eyebrows rose. "Colleague? I thought she was your housekeeper." "She's joining the communications department at Winterfield Innovations," Elias said smoothly. "Now what about the board position?" Victoria's expression flickered with annoyance before settling back into a practiced smile. "The vote is next week. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page about my role." "I've made my position clear to the board," Elias replied coldly. "I don't think having my ex-wife as a director sends the right message about the company's direction." Victoria's smile didn't waver. "The majority disagree with you, darling. My connections in the fashion world are exactly what your wearable tech division needs." She stepped closer to him. "Besides, we worked so well together once. We could again." The implication in her voice was unmistakable. Talia felt a stab of something that might have been jealousy as she watched Victoria place a manicured hand on Elias's arm. "I have a dinner reservation at Bellini's at 8, Victoria continued. "Join me for old time's sake." Before Elias could respond, Talia spoke up. "Mr. Winterfield already has dinner plans tonight." Both Elias and Victoria looked at her in surprise. "He does?" Victoria asked coldly. "I do?" Elias echoed, confusion crossing his features. Talia met his eyes steadily. "Yes, with me, to celebrate my new position." Understanding dawned on Elias's face, followed by something like admiration. "That's right," he said. "I'm sorry, Victoria. Perhaps another time." Victoria's perfect composure cracked slightly as she looked between them, clearly calculating the implications. "I see," she said finally. "How unexpected." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "The board votes on Tuesday, Elias. Think carefully about where your interests lie." After she left, Elias released a breath. "Thank you for that." "I shouldn't have interfered," Talia said, suddenly embarrassed by her boldness. "No, you saved me from a very uncomfortable evening," Elias assured her. "Victoria never does anything without an agenda." "And what is her agenda?" Elias's expression darkened. "Now that the company's stock is rising again and I'm back in the public eye, she wants what she always wanted. Status, publicity, access to power." He sighed. "The problem is, she's very good at convincing others to give her what she wants." "Do you think the board will vote her in?" Talia asked. "Probably," he admitted, "unless something changes their minds before Tuesday." An idea began to form in Talia's mind, but she kept it to herself for now. Instead, she smiled and said, "So, about that dinner, did you really want to have dinner with me? Or was that just to rescue me from Victoria?" Elias asked, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. "Both," Talia admitted, "if the offer still stands." For the first time since New Year's Eve, the tension between them dissolved into something warmer, more comfortable. "It does," Elias said, "but not at some fancy restaurant where we'd be photographed and gossiped about." "Where then?" Elias smiled. "Do you trust me?" An hour later, Talia found herself on the mansion's rooftop terrace, a space she hadn't even known existed. Elias had arranged for a small table to be set up under the stars, with candles providing gentle illumination and a portable heater warding off the January chill. "The staff use this space in the summer," he explained as he pulled out her chair. "I thought it would give us some privacy." Rosa had prepared a simple but delicious meal, pasta with fresh seafood, crusty bread, and a bottle of wine that Elias assured her wasn't as expensive as it tasted. As they ate, Talia told him about her plans for the new job, her hopes for eventually returning to writing creatively. He listened attentively, asking questions that showed genuine interest in her dreams. "Maya told me you showed her around your medical technology division today," Talia said as they shared a chocolate dessert. "Thank you for doing that." Elias smiled. "She's a remarkable young woman. Reminds me of her sister, determined, intelligent, unafraid to speak her mind." "She likes you," Talia admitted. "She thinks I should—" She stopped, suddenly self-conscious. "Should what?" Elias prompted gently. Talia took a sip of wine for courage. "She thinks I should uncomplicate things between us." "Wise advice," Elias said, his eyes never leaving hers. "And how would we do that?" "Well, in 2 weeks I won't be your employee anymore," Talia pointed out. "That removes one complication." "True," Elias agreed, "but there are others. The difference in our backgrounds, our positions. People will talk." "People always talk," Talia said, echoing her words from New Year's Eve. "I've never cared much about that." "Neither have I," Elias admitted. "At least not until Victoria made sure our divorce was front-page news." He reached across the table to take her hand. "But this, you and me, this feels worth the risk." Under the stars with the lights of San Francisco twinkling in the distance, Talia felt the last of her reservations melting away. This man had shared his pain with her through notes passed in secret. She had seen him at his lowest and watched him find his way back. Now perhaps they could find a way forward together. "So what happens now?" she asked softly. "Now," Elias said, "we stop pausing and start living." He leaned forward, his intent clear in his eyes. "May I kiss you, Talia Brooks?" Her answer was to meet him halfway across the table, their lips finding each other in a gentle first kiss that held the promise of many more to come. Little did they know that below, in the garden, Victoria stood watching the rooftop terrace, her face twisted with anger as she took pictures with her phone. "Enjoy it while it lasts," she whispered, sending the photos to a tabloid reporter with a text, "Exclusive, Billionaire Elias Winterfield's secret affair with the help. By morning, their private moment would be public knowledge, and the complications they thought they were leaving behind would multiply in ways neither could imagine. Talia woke to frantic knocking on her bedroom door. It was barely dawn, and for a moment, she thought she was dreaming. The night before, the dinner with Elias on the rooftop, their first kiss, had felt like a dream itself. "Talia, wake up!" It was Rosa, her voice urgent. Wrapping a robe around herself, Talia opened the door to find the cook holding a tablet, her expression grim. "You need to see this," Rosa said, handing her the device. The screen showed a gossip website with the headline, "Billionaire's Secret Romance with Maid. Elias Winterfield finds love below stairs." Below was a grainy but unmistakable photo of Talia and Elias kissing on the rooftop terrace. Talia's stomach dropped. "How did they get this?" "Victoria," Rosa said darkly. "She must have been lurking on the grounds after she left. The vultures are already at the gates, reporters, photographers. Mrs. Porter is having a fit." As if summoned by her name, Mrs. Porter appeared in the hallway, her usual composure shattered. "Ms. Brooks, Mr. Winterfield requests your presence in his office immediately. This situation must be addressed." Talia dressed quickly, her mind racing. She had known there would be gossip if she and Elias pursued a relationship, but she hadn't expected it to become public so soon or in such a humiliating way. The main house was in chaos. Staff members whispered in corners, falling silent as Talia passed. Through the windows she could see news vans parked at the gates, reporters with cameras and microphones waiting like predators. Elias's office door was closed. Talia knocked, her heart pounding. "Come in," his voice called. She found him standing by the window, phone pressed to his ear, tension evident in every line of his body. When he saw her, he quickly ended the call. "I'm sorry," were his first words. "This is exactly what I was afraid of." "It's not your fault," Talia said, though her voice trembled slightly. "Victoria did this." Elias nodded grimly. "She's always been calculating. This serves two purposes. It embarrasses me before the board vote, and it punishes you for standing up to her." Talia glanced at the tablet still in her hand. The comments below the article were cruel, many questioning her motives, suggesting she was a gold digger who had manipulated a vulnerable man. "The board is in emergency session," Elias continued. "The chairman called me this morning. They're concerned about the company's image." "And your job offer to me," Talia realized. "They'll think it was because we were involved." "Which we weren't at the time," Elias said firmly. "You earned that position." Talia sat heavily in a chair. "What do we do now?" Before Elias could answer, there was another knock at the door. It was Maya, still in her pajamas, looking worried. "I just saw the news," she said, coming to sit beside her sister. "Are you okay?" Talia managed a weak smile. "I've been better." "Ms. Brooks," Mrs. Porter appeared in the doorway, her voice cold. "There's a call for you, from Winterfield Innovations' HR department." Talia felt the blood drain from her face. She took the cordless phone Mrs. Porter held out, aware of everyone watching her. "Hello?" she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Ms. Brooks, this is Sharon Levy from Human Resources," a clipped voice said. "In light of recent developments, we need to discuss your employment offer." "You're rescinding it," Talia said flatly. There was a pause. "The board feels it would be inappropriate at this time, given your personal relationship with Mr. Winterfield. There are concerns about favoritism, company image, and the potential for conflict of interest." Talia closed her eyes, pain washing over her. The job she had earned, the fresh start she had been so excited about, gone because of one kiss, one moment of happiness. "I understand," she said, though she didn't, not really. "Thank you for letting me know." She hung up and looked at Elias, who had heard enough to understand what had happened. The anguish on his face mirrored her own. "I'll fix this," he promised. "The board can't do this without my approval." "Actually, they can," Talia corrected him gently. "And fighting them will only make things worse." She stood, squaring her shoulders. "I should go. This isn't going to blow over while I'm still here." "Talia, no." Elias moved toward her, but she stepped back. "I need time to think," she said, "to figure out what happens next." Maya stood beside her sister, supportive, as always. "We can go to my dorm room for a few days, until things calm down." Mrs. Porter, who had been hovering in the doorway, spoke up unexpectedly. "Ms. Brooks, whatever my personal feelings about this situation, I want you to know that your position here is secure, if you wish to keep it." The gesture of support coming from the least likely source, nearly broke Talia's composure. "Thank you, Mrs. Porter, but I think some distance would be best right now." 2 hours later, Talia and Maya were in a taxi heading toward the city, having slipped out through the service entrance to avoid the reporters. Talia stared out the window, watching Winterfield Estate disappear around a bend in the road. "He'll come for you," Maya said confidently. "Once he deals with the board and that awful ex-wife." Talia wasn't so sure. The humiliation of the tabloid story, the loss of the job, the realization of just how different their worlds really were, it all felt like too much to overcome. "Maybe some things are just too complicated to uncomplicate," she said softly. The next few days passed in a blur. Holed up in Maya's tiny dorm room, Talia watched from afar as the story exploded across the media. Some outlets portrayed her as a calculating gold digger, others spun a Cinderella narrative about the billionaire and the maid. Neither felt like the truth. Elias called and texted repeatedly, but Talia wasn't ready to talk. What was there to say? Their brief moment of happiness had cost her a job and subjected them both to public ridicule. On the third day, Maya returned from classes with a determined expression. "Enough moping," she announced. "I've been doing some research." She spread printouts across her desk. News articles, financial reports, social media posts. "Victoria Chambers isn't just trying to get back on the Winterfield board," she explained. "She's in financial trouble. Her fashion line is failing, and she needs the Winterfield connection to save it." Talia frowned. "How do you know all this?" "I have friends in the business school who know how to find public records," Maya said with a grin. "The point is, she's desperate. That's why she's going after Elias now, and why she wanted to ruin things for you. You're a threat to her plans." Talia shook her head. "I'm not a threat to anyone, I'm just a housekeeper who got in over her head." "No," Maya said firmly. "You're the woman who helped Elias Winterfield find himself again, who stood up to Victoria when no one else would, who earned a job on her own merits." She grabbed Talia's shoulders. "And you're my big sister who never, ever gives up." Before Talia could respond, her phone rang. It was Rosa. "Talia, you need to come back," the cook said without preamble. "Things are falling apart here." "What do you mean?" "Mr. Winterfield, he's not good," Rosa explained. "After you left, he had a huge fight with the board. When they wouldn't reinstate your job offer, he threatened to resign as CEO." "He what?" Talia couldn't believe what she was hearing. "They called his bluff. Victoria has been working behind the scenes, convincing key board members that he's emotionally unstable. They've put him on a leave of absence and appointed an interim CEO until things settle down." "That's ridiculous," Talia protested. "He's been doing an amazing job since he came back." "I know that, and you know that," Rosa said. "But Victoria is very persuasive, and now he's locked himself in that study again. The curtains are closed, he won't let anyone in. It's like the last few months never happened." Talia felt a chill run down her spine. Elias, alone in the dark again, because of her. "What can I do?" she asked. "Come back," Rosa pleaded. "You're the only one he'll listen to, the only one who knows how to reach him." After hanging up, Talia sat in silence, thinking. Maya watched her, waiting. "I need to go back," Talia finally said. Maya nodded. "I know, but not just to rescue him again, to fight for what you both deserve. And how do I do that?" Maya grinned. "I might have an idea." The next morning, Talia returned to Winterfield Estate. The media frenzy had died down somewhat, with only a few persistent photographers still camped at the gates. She slipped in through the service entrance, where Mrs. Porter was waiting. "He won't come out," the housekeeper reported, actual concern in her voice. "Not even to eat." "I need to see Victoria's board proposal first," Talia said, surprising Mrs. Porter. "The one she submitted to Winterfield Innovations." "Why on earth—" "Please," Talia interrupted. "It's important." Reluctantly, Mrs. Porter led her to Elias's office, where the document sat on his desk among scattered papers. Talia read it quickly, her suspicions confirmed by what she found. She then took out her phone and called Maya. "You were right," she said. "She's planning to license the Winterfield name for her fashion line. That's what this is all about. She needs the company's reputation to save her brand." "Told you," Maya said smugly. "Did you find proof of the financial problems?" "It's all here in the proposal. She's positioning it as a strategic partnership, but the numbers don't add up. She needs this much more than Winterfield does." "Perfect," Maya replied. "And now go get your man, and don't forget what we practiced." With renewed determination, Talia headed for the West Wing and the study where it had all begun months ago. The door was locked, but she still had her staff keys. Taking a deep breath, she let herself in. The room was dark, curtains drawn just as they had been the first time. Elias sat in the same chair by the cold fireplace, staring at nothing. "You forgot to open the curtains," Talia said softly. "That's why the room feels dead." His head snapped up, eyes finding her in the darkness. "Talia?" Without waiting for an invitation, she crossed the room and threw open the curtains, just as she had done that first day. Sunlight flooded in, making Elias wince. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice hoarse from disuse. "Fixing things," she replied, "starting with these curtains." He looked away. "You should have stayed gone. It's safer for you." "Safer, maybe, but not better." She moved to stand in front of him. "You're doing it again, Elias, hiding in the dark instead of fighting." "I tried fighting," he said bitterly. "I threatened to resign if they didn't give you back your job. They called my bluff. So now you're just giving up, letting Victoria win?" His eyes flashed with anger. "What would you have me do? The board has sidelined me. The media has made you into either a gold digger or a victim. Everything I touch turns to ash." Talia knelt in front of his chair, forcing him to look at her. "No. Everything you hide from turns to ash. Everything you fight for has a chance to grow." She took his hands in hers. "I didn't fall for the billionaire or the CEO. I fell for the man who wrote me notes about books and dreams, who saw me as more than just a housekeeper, who was brave enough to step back into the light even when it hurt." Elias's expression softened. "I'm sorry about the job, about the media, about all of it." "I'm not," Talia said firmly, "because it brought me here, to you. And now we're going to fix it, together." She pulled him to his feet. "First, you're going to shower and change. Then we're going to the board emergency meeting at 2 o'clock. Elias looked startled. "How do you know about that meeting?" "Rosa has sources," Talia said with a small smile. "Victoria will be there presenting her final proposal before the vote tomorrow. We need to be there too." "They won't let you in," Elias warned. "Watch me," Talia replied, a determined glint in her eye. 4 hours later, Talia stood beside Elias in the elevator of Winterfield Innovations, heading for the top-floor boardroom. She wore her navy interview suit, her hair pulled back in a professional style. Maya's research was in a folder under her arm. "Are you sure about this?" Elias asked, looking more like himself in a crisp suit, though tension showed in the lines around his eyes. "No," Talia admitted, "but I'm sure about us. Whatever happens in there, we face it together." The boardroom fell silent when they entered. 12 people sat around a long table, with Victoria at one end beside a man Talia recognized as the board chairman. Victoria's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in anger at the sight of them. "Elias," the chairman said, clearly uncomfortable, "this is a closed meeting, and Ms. Brooks certainly isn't authorized to be here." "Actually," Elias said, his voice stronger than Talia had expected, "as the majority shareholder of Winterfield Innovations, I have the right to attend any board meeting, and Ms. Brooks is here as my advisor." Victoria laughed, the sound brittle. "Advisor? Is that what we're calling it now?" "Miss Chambers," Talia spoke up, surprising everyone, including herself. "I believe you were about to present your proposal for a strategic partnership between Winterfield Innovations and your fashion brand." Victoria's perfect smile faltered. "I was, before we were so rudely interrupted." "Please continue," Talia encouraged, taking a seat at the empty end of the table. Elias sat beside her, the ghost of a smile playing around his lips. Regaining her composure, Victoria launched into a polished presentation about the synergies between her fashion brand and Winterfield's wearable technology. She spoke of market expansion, brand alignment, and mutual benefits. When she finished, the chairman nodded approvingly. "Thank you, Victoria. The board will vote tomorrow, but I think I speak for many of us when I say your proposal has merit." "Before you conclude," Talia said, standing up, "I'd like to present some additional information for the board's consideration." "This is highly irregular," the chairman protested. "So is allowing a company's ex-wife to join its board for personal gain," Talia countered. She opened her folder and began distributing documents. "These are public financial records for Victoria Chambers Designs. As you can see, the company has been losing money for 6 consecutive quarters. It's on the verge of bankruptcy." Victoria stood abruptly. "This is outrageous. Where did you get these documents?" "Public records," Talia replied calmly. "The same place I found the liens against your company assets and the lawsuit from your manufacturers for unpaid invoices." The board members began murmuring, examining the papers with concerned expressions. "This partnership isn't about strategic alignment," Talia continued. It's about Victoria using the Winterfield name and resources to bail out her failing company, which would be fine if she were honest about it, but she's not. Victoria's face had turned an alarming shade of red. You have no right. You're nothing but a maid who seduced her way into Elias's life. The room fell silent at her outburst. Talia took a deep breath, remembering Maya's coaching about staying calm. Yes, I was a housekeeper at Winterfield Estate, she acknowledged. I'm not ashamed of that. I took the job to support my sister through college after our mother died. Before that, I was studying literature and playwriting until life got in the way. She looked around the table, meeting each board member's eyes. I applied for a position in your communications department based on my qualifications and was offered the job before there was anything personal between Mr. Winterfield and myself. That offer was rescinded not because I wasn't qualified, but because Victoria Chambers sold photos to the tabloids to embarrass us both. Elias stood beside her, his hand finding hers. Board members, you put me on leave because you questioned my judgment. But ask yourselves, which shows better judgment? Partnering with a failing company out of misplaced loyalty to an ex-wife who has repeatedly demonstrated her willingness to damage this company for personal gain, or recognizing talent and integrity regardless of someone's background or position? The chairman cleared his throat awkwardly. This is all very dramatic, but what exactly are you proposing? 2 things, Elias said firmly. First, reject Victoria's board nomination and partnership proposal based on the financial information Talia has provided. Second, reinstate Talia's job offer, reporting to the communications director, not to me, to avoid any appearance of impropriety. Victoria slammed her hand on the table. This is absurd. You can't possibly take the word of this nobody over mine. This nobody, Elias said, his voice dangerously quiet, saw value in me when everyone else saw a broken man. She told me the truth when everyone else was telling me what I wanted to hear. If that's being a nobody, then perhaps we need more nobodies in this company. The chairman studied them thoughtfully. Miss Chambers, I think it would be best if you stepped out while the board discusses these matters. Victoria gathered her things, shooting Talia a venomous look before stalking out of the room. Talia and Elias followed, waiting in the hallway while the board deliberated. That was... Elias seemed at a loss for words. Terrifying, Talia admitted. My knees are still shaking. You were magnificent, he said, admiration clear in his voice. How did you get all that information about Victoria's company? Talia smiled. Maya, she has friends in the business school who know how to research public companies. Turns out your ex-wife isn't as clever as she thinks. Before Elias could respond, the boardroom door opened, and the chairman beckoned them back in. We've reached several decisions, he announced once they were seated. First, Victoria Chambers' board nomination has been rejected. Second, Elias Winterfield's leave of absence is terminated, effective immediately. Third, Talia Brooks' job offer in the communications department is reinstated, with a revised reporting structure to avoid conflicts of interest. Relief washed over Talia. They had done it. And finally, the chairman continued, the board would like to formally apologize to both of you for allowing personal matters to interfere with business decisions. Ms. Brooks, your insights today were impressive. Mr. Winterfield, it seems your judgment wasn't impaired after all. As they left the building together, Talia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. What happens now? She asked, echoing her question from the rooftop. Elias looked at her, sunlight illuminating his face. No more shadows, no more hiding. Now we build something new, together. 6 months later, Talia stood in the wings of a small theater in San Francisco, heart racing as she watched the audience take their seats. Her first play was about to premiere, a story about a man locked in darkness and the woman who opened his curtains. Maya squeezed her hand. They're going to love it, sis. It doesn't matter if they do, Talia replied honestly. I wrote it for us. Her job at Winterfield Innovations had proven to be everything she'd hoped for. Her direct, honest approach to communications had earned her a promotion within months. More importantly, it had given her the stability and confidence to return to writing in her spare time. 5 minutes to curtain, the stage manager announced. Elias appeared beside her, handsome in a suit, but without the corporate stiffness he'd once worn like armor. Nervous? He asked. Terrified, Talia admitted. What if they hate it? Impossible, he said, kissing her forehead. But even if they did, it wouldn't change anything that matters. In the 6 months since the board meeting, they had weathered the last of the media storm together. The tabloids had eventually lost interest when their relationship proved to be neither a scandal nor a fairy tale, but something real and enduring. They had taken things slowly, deliberately. Talia had kept her staff room at the mansion for 2 months while working at the company, maintaining her independence until she was sure of her feelings. Elias had respected her boundaries, never pushing, always patient. When she finally moved into the main house as his partner, not his employee, it had felt right, a choice made freely, with eyes open to both the challenges and the possibilities. "Places, everyone," the stage manager called. Elias squeezed her hand one last time. "Break a leg. I'll be in the front row." As he turned to take his seat, Talia caught his arm. "I love you," she said simply. They had said the words before, but somehow tonight they carried extra weight. Elias smiled, a full, genuine smile that still made her heart skip. "I love you too. Now go change the world with your words just like you changed mine." The lights dimmed, and Talia watched from the wings as the curtains opened on her story, their story. A man in darkness, a woman with light, 2 worlds colliding and creating something new in the space between. On stage, an actress playing Talia opened the curtains of a set designed to look like the study at Winterfield Estate. Sunlight, artificial but effective, flooded the stage. "You forgot to open the curtains," she said to the actor sitting in darkness. "That's why the room feels dead." In the audience, Elias reached into his pocket, feeling the small velvet box he had been carrying for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Perhaps tonight, after the show, with the woman he loved celebrating her triumph. On stage, light continued to pour in, illuminating all the dark corners, showing the beauty that had been there all along, just waiting to be seen. Just like them. Just like love. The end.